In this video, we're going to look at the steps involved in adding text, specifically a serial number to the underside of a keyguard. First, let's look at the underside of the keyguard to see if we can determine where the best place might be to add the text. We have several options. We could do it here or here, but I think I'd like to try adding it down here near the bottom of the keyguard. So there is a web page devoted to doing things like adding text, and it's this one on specifying a keyguard for a freeform or hybrid AAC app. What we had a moment ago, what we were looking at, is just a plain old grid-based app. But when we go to and do things like adding engraved text, we're going beyond the normal grid-based, and we're creating a hybrid keyguard. We're adding additional information in the form of instructions to add that engraved text. So we did already talk about where it might be appropriate to add that text, but let's talk about how we go about doing that. And what I'd like you to do is look at this picture here. There are two files where I can add instructions for engraving text. One is the screen openings.info file, and the other is the case openings.info file. The screen openings.info file governs this area that's marked in blue. It's the screen area of the tablet. The case openings.info file is used to add instructions that govern places outside of the screen but still within the case opening, though as you can see it still bounds and actually includes the screen area too. So you could put commands in the case openings file that would add features to your keyguard that fall within this screen area. But it turns out that if you're going to be placing things inside the screen area, there are just some nice features of the program that make it easier to do that using, say, readings off of a screenshot. But we're going to insert our information into the case openings.info file, and because we're going to be placing the serial number down here, down below the screen. And one thing to note is that when you're putting information in case openings.info, all the measurements are assumed to be in millimeters, not pixels. And this corner down here is the 0, 0 location for X and Y coordinates. So now let's go back to our keyguard. And that means that for case openings, this is the 0, 0 location down here. So if I specify that something is at 10 millimeters in the X direction, it's 10 millimeters this way. And if I say 20 millimeters in the Y direction, well then it's 20 millimeters up, which would actually place it over here where I already have holes, and it may be difficult to see our engraving as it's being placed. One little trick you can try to make your work a little easier is temporarily cover all of these openings. And in order to do that, all you have to do is set either the number of columns or the number of rows to 0. I'm just going to drag this one over, set it to 0. You see that now fills in all of those cells. All right, so this is the 0, 0 location. As I turn the keyguard over, this is now the 0, 0 location. And as I set X and Y values, X increases in this direction, Y increases in this direction. All right, time to go back to our little picture here. Now we'll scroll down and look at how we handle text. So engraving text. You'll specify what text you want to include, and it can be alpha or numeric, any character. When you specify the X and Y location, it's located right here, the leftmost part of the text string or name or word, and at the lowest part of that text string, including any descenders. You'll also put a height value in that you can think of as point size, but it's really height in millimeters. And the last thing to consider is how do you want to rotate that text so it fits within the space you provide. If I'm putting it on a vertical bar like this, then I'll rotate it to a 90-degree angle, and if I put it on a horizontal bar like this, I'll put it at a 0-degree angle. So just remember those things: X, Y down here, height, and what rotation. So next we'll open up the caseopenings.info file. So there are several info files. This is the one you're going to be editing, adding content to. So we'll just open that up. The file has a bunch of comments at the top to help explain what the data is that goes in here, and then some examples down below that are basically ignored because of these two slashes that are in front of each line. So we'll start by removing those two slashes, and then we'll go back up here and look at what it is we want to do. So there are two types of text, this T text and this B text. T text stands for text engraved on the top surface, B text, text engraved on the bottom surface. So we're going to be using B text for our serial number, and I'll just take that, and that's what I'll type in here where it says C for circle. I'll put in B text instead. Then I can read down here some further comments for what these particular shapes need. Well, they need an X and Y value. Remember that, the lower left-hand corner of the text string. A height, how many millimeters high the text should be. A top slope, that was that rotation part. A bottom slope and other. We didn't talk about bottom slope, but bottom slope, as we read on further here, what kind of font style do you want it to be? Normal, bold, italic, or bold italic? And it turns out that I can either put a 0 in the bottom slope or simply not put a 1, 2, or 3. Those all, any value other than 1, 2, or 3 means just normal text. All right, so let's look further at this line that we're just modifying down here. We need an X and a Y value, and when doing this kind of work, I just simply like to put some values in and then modify them until I get what I want. So I'm going to just say 10 millimeters in the X direction. Let's do another 10 millimeters in the Y direction. Width, nobody cares about width for this particular purpose, but the height, let's make it 5 millimeters tall. And the text we want to put in is a serial number. Let's just pretend it's 00023. All right. Now, if I close this up, slide this over a little bit, we might actually be able to observe the text updating. We expect it to appear somewhere down in here, 10 millimeters in, 10 millimeters high, something like that, maybe in this area somewhere. So all we have to do is save this file, and our text should appear almost immediately. All right, it's a little hard to see. You see it here, but it's a little hard because of the angle. So there's our 00023, and it's not in the direction we wanted. We wanted it to be running horizontally, and let's find out why. Well, remember top slope was the thing here that says what the direction or rotation will be, and we left it at 90. So let's change this to 0 and update the file. Okay. So remember that X and Y are at the 0, 0, 0 on the bottom left corner of the text. So we're going to need to move this over to the left to get the whole text on the keyguard. So let's increase the X value. Remember, X is increasing this direction on the back. So let's make it 20. Like I say, it's easiest to just make the change, see what happens. Okay, not bad. I think I want to bring it in just a little bit more. Let's go ahead and make it a 30. Okay, that's looking good. If I go back now and change my columns back to 10, we'll see if we're... No, that's not going to work. It's up too high. The Y direction is too high or too far. So let's change this to something smaller. How about 5? Save. Close, but we're still extending into there. So let's bring it down even further. 2 millimeters from the very bottom of the case opening. There we go. So that's exactly what I want. My my text, my serial number is properly engraved on the bottom, and I can go ahead and prepare this for printing. The text looks a little rough right now, but we can improve it simply by doing a rendering step. So render this. All right, so there's our text right now. Pretty nice and easy to read. We can print it. If our printer is having difficulty with openings this small, we can make it bold. We could try making it taller. We could bring it down a little further and make and increase the height of it to make it just larger, and therefore the little lines maybe easier to print. But you'll discover that what's necessary on your own printer.